historical ways that we were at peace with those kind of things. So that's that. That's November, and of course. Our 13th moon in the dictionary that I use as a resource was from Montague Chamberlain. In the 1800s, he left behind a document from Harvard University in the States, and he went through our territory here and interviewed elders on how do you name your moons. In his dictionary, he has a word called Pkudnans. And I remember asking my grandmother what Pkudnans means, and she goes, "Don't ever use that word, it's very disrespectful." And so of course, without telling me what it meant, I found out, you just go to your girlfriends. They're going to tell you because they know, the older girls, And what Pkudnans means, and I could see why she would say it's a disrespectful word. It means the English version is bastard, but we don't have a word for bastard. Pkudnans just means unknown origin. So, and she would say every child has an origin, so there's no such thing as calling a child that. And so I didn't want to put that word, but that's what he has in his document from the 1800s, is this Pkudnanswigizus. And I, for sure, remember how upset my grandmother was with that word, that don't ever say that word again, that I would never call my 13th moon that. And so for me, it's Skijinawigizos, it's sacred earth moon. And by saying Skijinawigizos, or another elder, she had a really good way of calling it is Agwamigizos, meaning one more than the 12th one, And so, but it's sacred earth moon because that 13 moons, there's stories of 13 moons on turtle's back. 13 is a sacred number for us. And so for me, it's sacred earth moon. It's acknowledging that there's a 28-day cycle, making sure that we have women, making sure that we have young girls who aren't ashamed of being guided by Grandmother Moon, making sure that we have young boys who will respect those young girls who are on their moon time and not abuse them by insulting them when they're on their moon time, And I've heard that through the years, and I've always tried to, I've made sure my sons respect their women on their moon time and not say, "Oh, I can tell you're on the rag. Oh, I can tell this, you're this." And society has even invented medication that lets the young woman know that, "Oh, you don't have to have pain here, cover it up." But then when it comes time for birth, then it's difficult for that woman to be able to have natural birth, because since the time she started taking medication for her moon time, she's addressed in her mind that I don't have to feel pain, not even at birth, so put me out and take it out, So something has happened in this medication time. So for me, these 13 moon teachings have to do with honoring even young girls' moon times, teaching brothers how to honor, that young woman, because it's her time that's so sacred, because she's going to be a life giver, and not to abuse the hormones that go with it, by insulting that young girl. One of the things that I suggest for young people that I work with is to teach the young boys that when your sister is brave enough to tell you she's on her moon time, the whole family would know, then she doesn't have to do her chores, whether it's doing dishes, laundry, or anything. At that time, she's excused not just to lay on the couch and watch TV. She has to use that time to be more creative. Okay, if I'm going to be a life giver, I'm going to have to learn how to do this or do this. So she has to contribute something besides the chores to know that now that she's a young woman, there's responsibilities that go with that, learning how to cook, learning how to weave, learning how to draw, learning how to sing, learning how to do ceremony, whatever it is. This has to be a learning time for her, because that's the responsibility of becoming a young woman, so that by the time you become a mother, you'll have all these skills that you've learned while you were a young woman, honoring your moon time, and of course how to be a grandmother. And I, myself, I was lucky enough to be brought up by my grandmother. Not that I didn't want to be with my mother. It's just that that's the way things worked out in my life. Her mother came to get me. I was her first grandchild, and I was brought up by my maternal grandparents. And I'm so lucky because of when I started school in Perth. I remember we were learning how to read and write in English, and I remember one of my papers was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember, I want to be a nokmis, I want to be a grandmother. And I remember the kids laughing in the school, and how come they're laughing at grandmother? It's an awesome thing, because my grandmother was community-minded. She was president of Catholic Women's League. She helped with the Girl Guides. She helped with birthing. She helped at the nuns. She helped at the church. She volunteered for this. She taught women how to do that. People were coming to her for dream interpretations and medicines, and so she was very busy, So I couldn't understand why it wasn't that you wouldn't want to be a grandmother. So in 2000 or 2001, I actually received an award in the grandmother category from the then Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable Marilyn Tremholm. And because I take storytelling seriously, and I wanted to save stories, so I would volunteer and go to non-Aboriginal schools and tell stories about my people so that they would grow up knowing that we're not savage, we're not, how the history books portray us, because I wanted them to be good ambassadors for that peace and friendship that our ancestors signed. And so I honor being a grandmother, and today I'm lucky enough to be a grandmother to 5. And matter of fact, today, June 1st, 2016, as this is being taped, I have a grandson who's celebrating a birthday. His traditional name is Musquin, but he now uses the name Quinn, and it means the breath of creation. And so his name is Sky. And when I gifted him that name, I told him that no matter where you go in your life, I'll see you every day, because I'm giving you a name that I can just look up and think of you. So Sky is his name. When he was 3 years old living in California, he called me up and he said, "Nokmis, can you change my name? Because kids don't know how to say it and they don't know what it means." And I says, "You tell your friends, take them outside and you point up to the sky and tell them, that's how big my name is. It's the whole sky." Then you tell them to take a deep breath, and you tell them, "You have my name inside you now, because it's the breath of creation." So anyway, so he did that. A couple days later, he calls me back and he goes, "Nokmis, can you come to California? My friends want a new name." So it just shows how sacred our relationship is to these 13 moons. And for each of you, you should know, everybody should have a birth story. Everybody should know the time that they were born. That's why doctors put it on there, 6 a.m., 6:10 a.m., etc. It's really important to know that, because that's going to be your time you go to heal, because that's when you came into the world. And that's the time you can go back to and say, "Okay, you brought me into the world at 6:10 a.m. Therefore, could you heal me? I'm suffering through this." And I would use that time. And there's times that I've done ceremonies for different people in the middle of the night, because that's the time that they were born. So it's really important to know your birth story. Who was there? What was the weather like? What was happening in the world at that time? Was Neil Armstrong walking on the moon on the month that you were born? Those are all really significant of why you were brought into the world at a certain time. And always to remember, these 13 moons have to do with your spirit, not just your physical. Your physical is the medicines that grow in your birth moon, or don't grow, but know how to prepare to, so that you'll have them when it's in your time. Seasons, where you're born in spring, summer, autumn, or winter. You know, that has to do with 4 elements. You know, so there's were you born at the time when earth, air, fire, and water were elements. So it's really important, and that's why that Chiba Mausawaganal framework tells you about that. So you can actually look to see your energies, you know, and how to honor the 13 moons that grandmother moon gifts us, and to honor all life givers, all women, and to make sure that you pass on that respect to the next generation. Uliwan. Okay, that ends the 13 moon one.